Currently, the biggest video on this channel is a video on the lore accurate duo of Gorse and Grendel. I've been looking forward to revisiting both of these frames individually, and with the most recent update I now have an excuse to revisit Grendel. While he may not have received any direct ability changes, he did get his hands on a brand new augment called Gastro, and this is one of those augments that not only enters multiple of our current Grendel builds and playstyles, but also just makes him way better at what he already does. To summarise the functionality in the most basic way possible, Gastro is an augment that significantly increases the damage you can put out with Regurgitate. It is quite literally just a straight up damage buff to Grendel's main nuke ability. The way this actually works is by applying gas damage and bounces the projectile of his 4. The projectile can now bounce up to 3 times total, meaning more than one hit, and the gas damage means better AoE damage and ticks over time. Understanding that at base, Grendel's 4 already deals toxin and strips 100% of enemy armor, and Grendel's access to viral damage from Nourish, you can start to understand why adding gas and rebounding projectiles into the mix can make a significant difference to his kit. Now as for today's video, I would like to talk about 2 setups, one focused around Grendel's base kit with no helmet, and the other focused on using a helmet to further maximise the damage dealt by Gastro. It's worth noting that I did test both of these setups in Void MOT, which of course has a 4 times enemy damage multiplier, which did make surviving way harder. Even a frame such as Grendel with huge armor and health values can easily get chewed up in this mission, however that shouldn't really distract you from how well he performs in like 90% of the other content available within the game. MOT is just unfair and kind of a shield gate jerk off mission anyway. Just worth pointing out in case the gameplay deceives you, because we've taken Grendel into the thousands before, and this new augment increases his ability to do so due to the much higher damage. Let's get into the first setup, which involves Raw as our subsume. This build is about prioritising Gastro's damage at the cost of the survivability and the mobility that Pulverize grants. Using Raw instead of Pulverize to massively increase the damage done by Gastro for just pure overkill damage numbers and higher level nuking. We can also sacrifice some efficiency in this setup in favour of high strength, as casting Raw won't consume energy over time the same way Pulverize does. The huge energy bonus from Nourish, and the speed in which you can kill with the build ensures your energy keep up, and the amount of rim nuking you can achieve also means you don't really have to use your guns too often. Before we get into either build, I want to briefly mention the use of the Tauforge Green Archon Shard for its Toxin proc. This increases our 4's damage by 3 times, making it worth the investment for even more damage, especially on the build that does not use Raw. As for the builds, they are a single mod difference. The higher strength but lower efficiency granted by Blind Rage is perfect for the Raw setup. If you want to take this build high levels, I suggest taking out Energy Siphon and replacing it with Brief Respite, and then either Vitality or Adaptation can be replaced with Catalyzing Shields. Just know that if you want to shield gate with your 4, then lower efficiency may be risky. Gourmand is also optional but combines really nicely with Arcane Battery for a much higher energy pool with enemies in your stomach. As for the difference in modding when you're using Grendel's base kit, I recommend replacing Blind Rage in favour of Transient Fortitude, so you can safely use Pulverize without having energy issues. Pulverize gives you even more consistent armor strip with its bounces, and the health regen helps you keep up your long-term survivability. In addition to this, the augment Catapult is also a good Exodus option for this setup, at least when you're using this build on larger tile sets. Another important element of the setup is using a grouping tool. In this instance, I'm using the Nautilus, which obviously makes a frequent appearance on this channel because I think it's probably the best sentinel. But if it's a playstyle choice and you don't really want to rock Raw, you can throw in a grouping skill like Ensnare. There's a few grouping tools you can use from the helmet, but Ensnare will probably be my pick. Where this is really helping is making use of the gas damage. Obviously gas damage does way more damage when those ticks bounce off of each other when enemies are close together. So for me, when it comes to helmet, I personally prefer Raw, but having the Nautilus there to, on a regular occasion, group enemies up for me increases my damage on a regular occasion. As for focus calls, I'm often rocking Madurai, and it's no different here. The bonus strength is useful, but I really like the casting speed because Nourish is a bit slow, just makes the gameplay way smoother. And like I said, both of these builds don't really need to use weapons too much, you can use whatever you want. Because you're most likely going to be using something for grouping, using an AoE weapon to make use of that would be a good option, but anything really works here. So we've got to talk about where Grendel sits now. A few months back we did do a Warframe tier list, and I can't remember exactly where I put Grendel, but I think it was probably around high B, low A. Maybe that's incorrect, but either way, I think he's much higher now in terms of where I put him on a tier list. This is very common for Warframes to get new augments that just straight up increase their rank. A lot of Warframes are useless without certain augments, and whilst Grendel isn't useless without this, I think Gastro is most definitely good enough to up his rank. On its own, Regurgitate is a solid AoE ability. It has great armor strip and good tick damage over time. The Toxin combined with the Viral from Nourish and the armor strip, he's already capable of going to pretty high level, but an augment that just straight up increases your damage by large values, I can't think of a reason to ever not use this on a build. And you're probably also wondering how much closer does this bring him in line to Gorse? Well, he's not going to be quite at that level yet, but he's way better now. I think if we were to revisit the Gorse and Grendel combo and go on a longer survival, I think Grendel will be able to keep up much easier this time, at least in terms of the kills department. So if you haven't tried Grendel and you want to get into him, now would be a really good time, and definitely get your hands on the Gastro augment. Like I said, Gourmand is optional, but overall I do enjoy it because it helps with some energy efficiency, being that it makes your first ability cost health to cast, and you can get your health back with your 2. The combination of the augments is really solid, but I'd say for anyone who's not subsuming off your 4th ability, Gastro should be in every one of your Grendel builds from now on. As per usual, I'm going to leave you with some of the gameplay from the run, and also the fashion at the end of the video. If you enjoyed the content, feel free to like and subscribe. All my links are in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.